We're live. Hi, and welcome to a very special episode of the College Essay Guy podcast. Why very special? Because we're doing this video. So if you're listening to the audio version of this, you can go to YouTube, search for Jed Appleruth College Essay Guy podcast, and you will see our lovely faces. We've never done this before, but let's see if this works out. And feel free to give me some feedback in the comments if you like. My guest today is Jed Appleruth. He is the founder and CEO of Appleruth Tutoring Services and a good friend of mine, I'm happy to say. He went to UPenn, he went to Georgia State, hashtag go Pounce. Pounce is the mascot for Georgia State, am I right?
The Panthers.
The Panthers. That Pounce, I think, is the name of the Panther. Anyway, that's all the research I've done for this episode, by the way, nice. Jed. He's been helping students since 2001, he and his team, on all manner of test prep and tutoring services. So we'll link to where you can find out more about him. But hi, Jed, and welcome.
Ethan, great to be here, man.
Oh, and full disclosure, Jed is also, check this out. You didn't know I was going to do this, but Jed's also my,
what?
Yeah, Jed is my, we were on a dodgeball team for the last conference that we went to together. This is us. We are the members, two of the founding members of Pink Fury.
Pink Fury, baby. Never say die, Pink Fury.
Pink Fury for life.
Right.
So I thought that it was really important that I share that. Jed loves to paint. He loves the outdoors. He loves all kinds of things. Jed, how are you today?
Ethan, so far it's great, man. I'm enjoying talking to you, and I love our connection, so this is great.
So we're going to talk about anxiety today.
Makes me nervous thinking about it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we were having some tech difficulties before, and I was like, I was just like reading through the notes and trying to be like, maybe I should start practicing some of these. Is this something that is like, why are we talking about anxiety? Like, first of all, is that anxiety something that you experience even?
You know, in my life, anxiety shows up when I do more like medical things, or I go for a test, or I'm waiting for feedback from a doctor, and my brain goes to the dark places that kids' brains go to when they're taking an SAT. And I think for me, it's all about your life and what you're exposed to, what your experiences. If you've had certain traumatic things, then you're going to have anxiety around certain events. But for me, it really is more, am I okay and healthy? And I have to calm myself down if my mind goes to dark places about my own health and vitality.
So right now, how much anxiety are you experiencing like right now? Like 1 to 10, like how would you rate it? Like 10 being the most you've ever experienced and 1 being like not much at all.
Right now, I'm probably a 1.5, 2.
Cool.
Because I honestly, hanging out with you, seeing your face on my screen calms me down.
I'm experiencing a 2.3 because I'm not sure whether to look at the camera or to look at you. So I'm just going to say to the viewer and listener that I'm sometimes going to be looking at one and sometimes the other. And now I feel like I'm at a 1.9. So
beautiful. I like that.
So why are we talking about this in terms of anxiety around test prep? Like, why is this even a big deal?
Well, anxiety in the domain of academics is a big deal. It affects students in high school. It affects students in middle school. I mean, the entire spectrum of education and college campuses across America. A couple of years ago, there was a national college health assessment, and 54% of all college students report feeling overwhelming anxiety. And that's the highest it's been reported. And across the country, college campuses, there's more anxiety, there's more depression, there's more self-harm, there's more, like heavy drinking, and there are behaviors people are trying to use to manage their anxiety that are not very adaptive or very healthy. And so the idea is, can you manage your anxiety? Can you self-regulate in a more healthy, positive way? Right. And the answer is yes, there is.
Right. And I make up that also having more options can help do that, right?
Yeah, for sure. People often don't know how to self-regulate. They have anxiety, and even as adults, some people, turn to a drink, or they turn to self-harm or cutting to bring things down. How do I calm myself when I'm aroused and stimulated? And the name of the game is there's a whole bag of techniques. Some of them I'm pulling from my background and as a therapist, and others just from my ed psych research and so forth. But,
by the way, I left it out of your bio, but Jed has a PhD in educational psychology, and he went to like 22nd grade. So am I right about that? You did like 22 years of schooling?
10 and a half years plus my 12. So yeah, I did a couple of years of school.
Right.
Happy to have that finished. I walked a couple of years ago for my doctorate, and that was lovely. Nice. But more of this content, though, really does come from the realm of psychology and the realm of, self-regulation. How do you manage stress, anxiety, fear, phobias? And that's where I'm pulling a good number of these different interventions for today.
So, you know, I'm all about the practical. So I'm like, let's get there.
Yeah.
What we're going to talk about today is these are, and I asked Jed, I said, could you come up with 10, things that would address, 10 practical ways to reduce testing anxiety? And he's like today I look on the doc and he's like, I'm gonna give you 25. So we're gonna do 25. And just to kind of respect your time, dear listener or dear viewer, we're gonna try and do this in 25 minutes. So I've given Jed the task, and I gave him this task like 5 minutes ago, of trying to knock these out in 25 minutes. In order to do this, we're going to use one of my favorite apps, and Jed will have his way of timing as well, but the Pomodoro technique, which I'll maybe talk about at some point, but it's just a tomato one timer. And it's a 25-minute timer where you focus on one thing. And the one thing we're going to be focusing on, it just is going to be eating itself, is steps to basically reducing testing anxiety. 25 tips. Are you down for this, Jed? Are you ready for this?
Ethan, I'm ready, man. Let's do this.
All right. So I'm going to hit, let's synchronize our timers. And when we, on the count of 3, when we say go, and I don't know, we might have some like fun ding sound that we add to this. 25 ways to, prevent testing anxiety, or at least not prevent, but maybe lessen.
To mitigate. Yes.
Mitigate. Good.
All about it.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right. So one of the important things for students is to help them feel that test anxiety isn't something that's special to them, that it's highly prevalent in society. In terms of research I've seen, about 60% of high school students report suffering from test anxiety at least some of the time. Yeah. And over 1/4 are afflicted almost always. So if students understand, that's 1 in 4 people almost always feel this, then that helps put it in context that it's not special to you. It's normal. It's part of the human experience. Wow. Anxiety is a human condition, and it shows up in academics. It shows up in job interviews, performance. It's just part of life. And
you're not alone is what I'm getting from this.
You aren't alone, and you're special, but not like this. So that helps it ground it. Number 1. All right. Number 2.
Ding.
Identify the source of the anxiety. Sometimes the anxiety is not generated by the student. It's more of a parental introject where the parents are having anxiety, fear about the outcomes, about scholarships, money, and the student is internalizing that fear, that anxiety. They're looking to the parents. So one of these strategies is to help reduce parental hovering. And I've had talks with parents to actually have them withdraw some of their attention, to back up a little bit and bring some of the pressure off the child, which can be affecting their outcome and their inner state of mind. So that was number 2.
Great.
Okay. Number 3 is a little neurochemistry goes a long way. When students begin to understand how anxiety functions in the body, and they start to know how the amygdala works and how it scans for threats, and then how the catecholamines, the stress hormones respond, how they work, how cortisol functions, how norepinephrine functions. When you have these stress hormones flooding your body, it affects so many systems, from your breathing to your skin tension, to your pupils, to digestion. And it's important. And also there's a thing called GABA, which is from the frontal cortex, which goes and calms the amygdala back down. And there's this dance, these 2 levers of arousal enhancing. That's the amygdala, fear, threat, danger, be aroused, ready to fight, flight, fold, freeze. And then there's the frontal cortex of GABA, which says, calm down, it's going to be okay. And the more you have this loop going of the calming it down, you can bring the amygdala's arousal level down. And that changes all the hormones going through your body, and that's part of it. So I like for kids to know what the amygdala is and the frontal cortex, and to have that construct when they're experiencing fear and arousal. That's from your fear center. That's the amygdala. So that's a little bit I do. Yeah.
I was just going to say, by the way, for folks listening, if you're like, I can't remember all that, we will link in the show notes to resources that you can go to understand all these little things. So don't feel like you have to memorize this right now.
Perfect. All right. Number 4, pull from other domains of competence. This is a classic move from Adlerian therapy. It is a strengths-based approach where are you strong? In this domain, you're having a problem managing your arousal. What other areas of your life have you found success managing your arousal?
And just for context, sorry, to cut you off, but like just a clarifying question. Will you explain to folks, when you're saying arousal, what does that mean? What are you meaning by arousal?
Arousal, stress, anxiety, these are all like the same thing. There's a curve, the Yerkes-Dodson curve, where you have the amount of stress in the system, the amount of arousal, then you have the performance. And a little bit of arousal is good. There's a place called eustress where you're rocking and rolling, and then there's distress when it hurts performance. And so by arousal, it's your system, your body, your chemistry you're getting turned up, the sympathetic nervous system, and then turned down again. And so it's the name of the game is arousal, anxiety, similar kind of stuff.
Cool.
So in terms of other domains of competence, some students may be struggling with anxiety, mitigation and management with testing, but they've found rock star approaches with their lacrosse or on the stage, if they're leading the show, or if they're in front of the Arab League for the big debate, or whatever the thing. We all face stress somewhere. Right. And students may have a technique. Oh, when I do lacrosse before a big match, I go run 2 miles. Like, hey, bingo, let's bring that technique into this domain. So anything you've learned that's worked for you in other areas of your life, bring it into academics. And that's a little tip there.
Love it. As a theater kid, that warms my heart because I'm thinking about like lying on the floor and shaking my legs, doing vocal warm-ups. And I actually do that sometimes when I'm stressed before, say, a conference talk or something. Anyway.
Exactly. So whatever works and whenever you bring it over, it's perfect.
Sweet.
All right. Number 5, just enhance self-care. So before the stress-inducing event, before the big test, whatever it is, really focus on things that are nurturing, loving, calming for you and your system, your body. And so for some people, that's playing certain kind of music, having certain smells, have something it's like vanilla, whatever it is, it calms them down, certain clothing, certain things, whatever makes you, at ease in your body and in general, talking to a certain friend, whatever it is, bring up self-care, and that helps manage anxiety on a low level. That was a quick one there, number 5. All right, number 6 is a big one from Sean Baylock, who is one of the experts in the US and probably globally on anxiety management, is writing about test anxiety improves performance. And so she did some research with her colleague Ramirez, and they were looking at, can you write about your testing anxieties, your worries, the way you're experiencing it, and does that help performance? So a 10-minute interval of writing about how anxiety shows up for you, how it affects you, actually really was shown to help performance on on testing in the laboratory. So take 10 minutes and stop circulating your thinking, but write about it. Man, I get nervous. My tummy feels off. I sweat. I'm worried about not getting into the college. I'm worried about having a bad score on the AP exam, whatever it is. 10 minutes of writing about it helps performance.
Love it.
Okay.
I'm not even going to say much. I'm just going to be like, just go.
Ding, cooking. We're on fire. All right, number 7, reappraisal arousal. And this one is a cognitive reframe regarding the symptoms, that simply telling students that the physiological responses tied to anxiety, sweaty palms, rapid heartbeat, is actually beneficial for thinking and reasoning can improve test performance and for students. Nice. And there's been research. I saw this in a big study with the GMAT, and they had a control group where go in and take it. Other group, they said, you know what? That some arousal is important and healthy. And actually, it's true that you need some cortisol spike to be at your peak. You have to have some stress and some, to focus. Without that, you're going to kind of breeze through it and not perform optimally. So some stress is good. And having students understand that, you know what, the fast heartbeat doesn't mean I'm not ready. It doesn't mean I'm not prepared. It means I'm getting test ready.
Right.
And that reappraisal is key. And one little quote from her book called Choke by Sean Baylock, she was mentioning for Bruce Springsteen that before big shows, his heart would race, he would feel all this. And he's like, oh, I'm nervous, I'm scared. After a couple of years, he reevaluated and said, you know what? I'm not scared, I'm excited. And that reframe was powerful. Then when the heart beats, okay, I'm getting ready, not, oh, I'm nervous, I'm worried. So little powerful shift there. All right, number 8, moving on. Giving students some success. Students, there's an idea, Albert Bandura, massive research guy out of Stanford, his whole theory was on self-efficacy. And he found that the number one thing for enhancing your sense of self-belief and your abilities to perform is having prior mastery experiences. And for some students, it's let's manufacture, let's create some. If you're having a hard time finishing a whole reading section on the SAT, let's reduce it, or let's give you more time. Let's build some sense of your ability, your mastery, your skills, and you'll begin to feel more self-confident, more self-efficacious is the language in psychology. And when you have some success, it breeds further success. So you bring it down, reduce it, get good at a 5-minute thing, and then maybe expand to an 8-minute thing, and so forth. So build on small successes as stepping stones. Great.
The way that I do this with students with essays is just like, give me 3 sentences. Give me 1 sentence.
Perfect. Let's build there. So if a whole page is overwhelming, bring it down, reduce some mastery, then that worked for you. Tell me about that, and then go from there.
I've said before, like we don't have to write the whole thing. Give me 1 word that's going to go in your essay. Like imagine the future version of your essay, and then they imagine 1 word, and then they can imagine another word. And I'm like, all right, 648 to go. So
I like it. That's awesome. All right, number 9, focus on self-talk and inner dialogue. So Anxiety is sustained by inner dialogue. It's that voice within is telling you, oh God, if we screw up, we're in trouble. That little voice is very powerful and very important. And the brain attends to those messages we're giving ourselves. And if the inner critic is serving up self-criticisms, fear-based thinking, imagining awful scenarios, then this is just one more mental activity for you to notice. And you can label it, it's critical, or judging, or whatever it is, or play nice, but ultimately acknowledge this is just one voice of many voices, and be attentive to your inner dialogue, because it can be very positive, like very coaching, and you've got this, versus, oh God, here comes a disaster. So have students really attend to that and know they can actually adjust that some. Mm-hmm. So after the focus part, number 10 is correct maladaptive self-talk. You're going to have some self-statements that are really destructive. And one of them is the idea of, you've heard someone say, I'm just not a good test taker, or I'm a bad test taker. And that's something they've repeated, they've reinforced, and that thought becomes an obstacle for our progress. Yeah. And so the name of the game is simply to permanently retire, irrespective of your prior experience with assessments. I need you to stop telling yourself, I'm bad test taking, because you can do all this work, that thought comes up, and that can short circuit all the work you put into this thing.
Right.
So avoid those massive negative statements.
That's great. And how do you do that? Like, how do you ensure you just stop doing that? You're saying?
Well, part of it is being aware that, a good test taker, after they miss a problem, they're not going to go to this, oh God, now it's over kind of mode, or, oh, I'm going to screw this up. They're going to have a different way of framing it. You know what? It's only one problem. I'll run it upward. And for them, whatever the past is, so you know what? I put in time, energy. I prepared for this thing. I'm going to do well. I'm going to do, certainly it's not going to be, I'm going to, tank on this thing. Right. But you have to reframe the way you're talking to yourself about this test. And if it's, oh God, I always mess things up, say, you know what? Even whatever the past has been, I'm open and willing for something new to happen in the future going forward.
That's great. I love that language. Yeah, great.
Me too. Then part of it is Ethan Cross has research out of Michigan looking at the kind of self-talk that's effective. And he was looking at his laboratory at self-statements and the importance of you statements to enhance confidence and so forth, and self-belief. So the name of the game is go for the first person versus saying, I've got this, I can do this. Say, Ethan, you've got this. Ethan, you can do this.
Cool. What does that do? Yeah.
It creates a level of separation from the little ego, the small s self, and the more advanced, more centered self. It's a cognitive distance, kind of like someone saying, like a mentor or a coach saying, you can do this. That sinks in better than your little thing. I think I've got this, like the bootstrap it. So even just saying, Ethan, man, you've got this, calm down. You've totally got this. That separation is helpful psychologically for centering oneself. So go with that one. New statements.
This is interesting. So one thing I have my students do is talk about their essays, and I don't know if it's the same studies, but it's different, but in the third person, just to create that separation, because sometimes it allows them to like look objectively at a thing and separate the essay they've written from themselves. So tell me about this person who wrote this essay. Anyway.
Beautiful. Like going to the balcony, looking down upon yourself, getting some perspective. They call it metacognition also, where you're looking at your state of mind, like, and that separation, that does seem to help. Right. So the other thing, number 12, along the same lines, separating, is you actually take the negative thoughts and you personify them. Give it a name. Create a worry monster. You can call it George or Henry or whatever name, Larry, the worry monster, and you make some distance. There's like, oh, worry beast, there you are again. I knew you'd show up in this place. And you name it, you help tame it, and you achieve a measure of control over it. And that's, psychologically, there are all these voices, all these parts of ourselves. And you have, that's part of the work I do at this place called STAR. And there are so many pieces. And the name of the game is who's talking. And oh, that's the critic. Oh, that's the anxiety. Got it. That's not me. There are many parts of me. That's one part. And then by separating the parts out, you actually do get a measure of control over it. And so you can draw it. You can say, why don't you go on an island for a few hours? Come back after the test is over. Or, put it somewhere where it's happy, but take it out of your mental space for a time. A little quick exercise mentally, but it does help some people.
Right.
Additionally, in terms of the mental games, cognitive rehearsal. And that's imagine practice makes perfect. Doing a mental walkthrough. When I was in cross country back in high school, my coach used to walk us through, have us close our eyes and imagine the course turn by turn by turn. And you're feeling tired, you're passing a person, here's turn number 6. I want to push the hill, and we'd imagine it going as best as it possibly could. Almost all major athletes do some of this stuff. They work with people and some hypnotic stuff, but they're imagining themselves doing well, imagining making the shots or hitting the putt, the inner game of tennis, all the same stuff.
I love that book.
So it's the inner game of testing. And you imagine yourself,
crushing it.
I miss a problem, and you know what? It's okay. Right. I imagine I'm not freaking out, but you know what? It's one problem. Imagine taking a deep breath and just walk through this thing. Section 2 is finished. Okay, you tell yourself 3 more to go, going strong, stay in the game. You simply try to lay down this new track, and you reinforce it a few times. So when you actually show up, that potential is there for you.
Great. I love it. Yeah.
Okay.
You're crushing it. Keep going.
Rocking. All right. Number 14, regulate your breathing. Breathing is tied to tied to spirit, tied to the center, our energy. Everyone, prana and the yoga, breathing is the foundation of all of it. And deep breathing through your diaphragm is a powerful way to reduce anxiety. Mm-hmm. And it activates the body's relaxation response. And we know that, it's not chest breathing, but the diaphragm, because the diaphragm backs up into this thing called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve controls the parasympathetic, the calming nervous system. So we now know when you stimulate that vagus nerve, it leads to a decrease in heart rate, a drop in blood pressure, and other sympathetic responses. So teaching your kids some of the biophysiology, when you deep breathe, it actually changes, it hits that nerve, and the whole body begins to relax.
Right.
So, and you have to show kids how to breathe in this way explicitly. Don't assume that they know how to do it. The whole breathe 4 count, you hold it, you breathe out, you hold it, and you repeat 3 or 4 times, and kids like, oh, okay. And you feel it in your body. Right. It's almost impossible to be jacked up on adrenaline, cortisol while you're doing
whatever.
Mountain Dew. I'm all jacked up, Chip. While you're doing deep, slow breathing. It short circuits the anxiety system. So
you're no longer coming at people like spider monkeys.
I'm going to come at you, Chip. That's right. Number 15. There's a book I have on the shelf, a few of these, on the heart math solution. And heart math, what I do with this, I do a little I put my hand on my chest, and I imagine just breathing in a loving way through my, I'm breathing through my whole body, but I have my hand on my heart just for a moment as I'm breathing into that energy center of the chakra, whatever you want to call it. And when I do that for a little bit and say, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, my body calms down. So just using the heart center, using some of the touch, using the calming, the breathing, and voicing. That's a heart math way of doing things.
Feeling it.
Number 16, use your body to ground anxiety. One of the best ways that we know to drop levels of stress, cortisol, is exercise. It's a natural anxiety reducer. Research shows that as little as 30 minutes of exercise, 3 to 5 times per week, can actually help drop anxiety levels for people. Exercise is protective in that it boosts endorphins and neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which may reduce symptoms of depression and elevate mood. It also suppresses cortisol, which is tied to stress, arousal, anxiety levels. Wow. So and it also it helps with addiction, helps with depression. Exercise is so incredibly good for our mental health, and some good, getting your heart rate up, getting the endorphins and everything else. It totally can help you balance anxiety levels.
Right.
All right. Number 17, using the body again, holistic relaxation, something physical like progressive relaxation where you're tensing little parts of your body and releasing from your feet to your calves, to your quads, and you tense, you hold 10 seconds, and then you release. And going up your body, left to right side, top to bottom, can help your body get into a more relaxed state. So use the body, it can help. Okay. Number 18, moving along.
You're right on time.
I'm cooking. Number 18, get enough sleep. Sleep is the key to reducing anxiety. And most of you have noticed when you get a bad night's sleep, your startle reflex is sharper. Like you're surprised by things. You have a hard time managing that. And so sleep, we know, it helps heal the brain. It helps clear out toxins every night. It's getting rid of waste products, handle memories, and help the emotions reset. So, and what's interesting is a good night's sleep, it's not only important on Friday before the test, but the Thursday before the test. There's a multiple day delay. So if you sleep terribly on Thursday, you're going to be really off on Saturday morning. So be mindful of not going to bed too late, watch your blue light, watch your phone use, really get sleep to help you balance your anxiety out.
I used to give this talk. So I used to teach in test prep. I don't know if you even knew this, Jed, maybe you did,
Yeah.
but in part of my talk, in my 3 minutes, like how to prepare, and like my final spiel was like, make sure you sleep 2 nights before the test. You get really good sleep. So this is like, right. I'm feeling so affirmed by this. Anyway, go.
Excellent, man. All right. Another tip from Sean Balak, our expert researcher. She, at Chicago, attend to your physical posture. And not the Superman pose thing, that was debunked, that didn't actually work. But there's research that Sean has done that, and one of her books, How the Body Knows Its Mind, is that, your body is getting signals and your mind is listening to the body. One of the great researchers, thinkers, philosophers, William James, a philosopher more so, he said, we do not run from a bear because we are afraid, but instead we are afraid because we run. And there's this interesting thing where we're getting feedback and we're learning that's the same thing that was found by Albert Bandura, that one of the ways the body figures out in terms of self-efficacy statements, it goes to the body. If the body is like, if feeling nervous in the body, then you think, oh God, I must not be ready for this. So there's a whole back and forth between the mind, the body, and the mind. And so what Sean says is relaxing the posture. And there's all this research too, like when you clench things, when you clench your face, it affects your mind.
Yeah.
And that's, if you look at behavioral economics, if you look at some of the research, Thinking Fast and Slow, by Kahneman, it's all about, if you smile, it affects your cognitions. If you frown, if you clench your fists, it's all back and forth. This information is going around. So the name of the game is having a relaxed body. If you're all tensed up, consciously, physically, let your body unwind, and that'll actually help your mind. Awesome. Number 20, tapping. There's a thing, it's the emotional freedom technique, where you do a series of tapping where you you hold the bottom of your hand, the base, then you tap like 5 times, and you actually may have a statement of, I'm relaxed, I'm calm, I'm ready. You tap the eyebrow, you tap the side of the eye, you tap under the eye, tap under the nose, you tap the chin, you tap the collarbone. As I do this, I begin to get relaxed. You tap the top of the head. And it's like this series of taps. I saw this at the games for the watching Olympians. Some of them are doing this tapping before their races. And so it's called the EFT, look it up, Emotional Freedom Technique, and tapping. And some kids love this and swear by it.
Yeah. And for those of you guys who are like, what is he talking about? Just Google that, find out more about that. I had this audiobook that I listened to all about tapping. It was great. I don't remember the name of it, but yeah.
And it's using the meridians, and for oral medicine, it's also using physical touch, because touch helps drop cortisol. And that's one of the things, even whenever someone's worked up or nervous or anxious, they're going to be touching them, their arm or their heart or their chest, because mammals bring down our arousal levels. Our mom used to do it by holding us. And even when you stress out a rat pup, the mom goes and licks it, and the baby's cortisol level drops. Human touch drops stress levels. So part of it may be kind of the tapping is simply just the touching. But human touch does drop anxiety levels.
Right.
All right. Number 21, grounding yourself in nature. Nature, going outside. There's some research on that in terms of a walk in the woods. Even something as simple as teenagers exposed to the sound of a water fountain at a dentist's office, it drops their level of anxiety and cortisol. So nature in all of its forms helps us calm down after years of, the safety of nature and so forth. I pull weeds to relax myself if I'm all worked up.
I go outside and shoot baskets. Well, that's not really nature. I go outside and go for a walk.
Use your body. The body,
right?
The environment. Change your environment. Number 22, ground yourself through human connections. Relationships and human contact can dampen your response to stress. So biologically, your ties with our friends stimulates the release of oxytocin, which drops anxiety and fear, and in part by limiting the response of cortisol. And so it shows that it actually, can help drop the stimulus level of the amygdala and make it less reactive to fearful stimuli and threats. So connections, the hug, the hand on the chest, the talking to a friend, these things can help us drop anxiety. So use your contacts socially, use your network. That can help bring things down for you as well. Talking to smart people who won't stir up your anxiety. Talking to nurturing, loving, calming, give a hug. I feel better already. Or go and pet your dog. At STAR, this place where I do some therapy work, there's on the dog's necklace, it's chief therapist. That's the collar for the dog. And petting the dog can help you calm yourself down. 23, Using centering physical objects. I have a little crystal. There are times I carry around rocks or worry stones. Some people use little rosary things. You have one there too. And the physical, the physical thing of holding a touch, again, can be calming to us. Yeah. And that can help us ground, just having something to hold to and kind of transfer some of the anxiety into this thing which can hold it for you. Number 24, using centering mental images or wisdom figures. And this comes back from either religion, or I look at it from the Carl Jung perspective. And he explored the grounding effects of these archetypes and these centering wisdom figures, inner spiritual guides, religious guides, which you can imagine going to this higher center, either self or the external king. It could be the Buddha, it could be Jesus, it could be any figure, it could be your grandmother, someone which helps you calm. It's the idea of of neural priming and mental priming, that imagining this person, their mindset helps you change your own mindset. So it's like thinking about smart people good at problem solving helps you become a better problem solver because you're priming that inner state of yourself. And so the idea of going to your wisdom place, going to the higher wise place within you to help you ground your anxiety. Number 25, last one, a minute left. To practice in conditions which replicate the test condition itself. So if being in a testing room makes you nervous, if being around people makes you nervous, if whatever it is, try to replicate that and try to use these techniques to learn to ground yourself in the same anxiety enhancing condition. So don't just test up in your bedroom, but practice these things in a place with people around you, in a loud place, so you learn how to regulate yourself in that stress condition. Okay. That's 25 things.
Bam!
Boom!
That was awesome. Okay, so if you're listening or if you're watching, first of all, I had this idea. I was like, this would be like a really cool 25-day program. And like, there's a little part of me that wants to like throw all these up on a spreadsheet or like on a blog or something. Maybe you can help me with that and just be like, here's one practice per day. Here's the 25-day program for like de-stressing your life. Maybe we'll write a book, Jed.
That would be awesome, Ethan. So this stuff is all, this is all self-regulation. And in life, we're going to have stress. Yeah. We're going to have stress and anxiety. It's going to be about academics. It's going to be the job interview, the pay increase, your partner's health, your children's health, your children's, whatever, their school. We all have anxiety. And whether we're, 15, it's who's going to ask me to the prom, whatever, what dress do I wear? There's always these things. And the better you get at self-regulation, it makes for an easier life. Yeah. So this stuff generalizes and transfers way, way, way beyond a test.
It's so huge. I think people are getting that if they're listening to that and listening to this and going like, oh yeah. I'm curious, which ones for you, as you went through that, are particularly resonant and useful in your life right now? Are there just a couple that you could pick out that you're like, that's my jam, this is my go-to?
The sleep, the self-care is big for me. The sleep. I'm not as good at self-regulation if I'm sleeping poorly. Yeah. And my emotions, like you can have a better container when you're eating right and sleeping right and exercising. I find that I'm just better resourced. I think touch for me is massive. Yeah. And I've learned that, in terms of your love language, for me, it's, the physical, nurturing, loving touch helps me get in my right mind.
Yeah, I said that last week. This is and last week I was like, boy, my love language really is touch. I was hanging out with some of my friends and we were just hugging each other and I was just like,
exactly. And then suddenly I could take on things and I realized, all right, so this test or this stress, whatever it is, it's going to be okay. And I get back to my wise adult when I'm in my scared kid. Right. And that really is, at STAR, the dynamic is, are you in your adult? Are you in the wounded kid? Where are you in the spectrum? Are you in the critic attacking the wounded kid? And ultimately, the name of the game is to center yourself. You want to get to that wise-centered adult place, which exists in us at 15, at 50, at 75. And we want to find that place, that wise-centered place. And so I do also use the archetypes and the image of myself in this wise-centered place. I have a little thing here that I have a little pyramid.
Yeah, tell me about that.
I love the shape of the pyramid and just in terms of the geometry and the strength of it, the foundation of it. And there are times when I'm in the middle of chaos, and often it's not with testing, but it could be I'm on the board of this organization and everyone's fighting, it's all going crazy. And I imagine like there's this big hurricane of energy and chaos and stress, but I imagine like grounding myself in this like deep, profound way with weight and gravity. And there's all this stuff and people are calling names and but it's like I'm getting more centered. And I use that imagery, that inner imagery, to help calm myself down and not get caught up in all this.
Right.
When there is regression and people are, hurling mud and there's fear and anxiety, it's like, and the idea of, there's also a fun thing. It's the Course in Miracles of the dichotomy between fear and love.
We've got so much in common.
I know, that's why we're friends. Or the place of fear and control versus, it's going to work out. It's going to be okay. Whatever comes up, it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And that state of mind, that acceptance versus, and of course, not acceptance like we don't do things, but this trust in life and a trust in my life and the universe, and not a place of terror and fear and, oh God, it's all going to fall apart. And I'm losing control of things. So I think going to the place of love and trust helps me as well as a whole construct, as a way of framing what's happening to you.
That's awesome. The ones, just to share the things that occurred to me just in this, as you were sharing, was one is the Reframe one is huge for me. And a resource that was amazing in my life for helping me learn to reframe things was this book, Loving What Is, Byron Katie. And there's a beautiful audiobook version that I recommend folks listen to, that it's just hearing her apply this thing, the work. It's 4 simple questions that you can take to change your life. And hearing the way that she applied those questions to people live was incredible, was amazing. And boy, it's meditation. I know that's something that I've struggled with in my whole life in terms of bringing it into my life. There have been times when I've been really good about it. But I'm at a point now, and I say this, that where I'm getting up at like 5:30 in the morning. I don't think I've told you this. And I'm meditating for 20 minutes. And sometimes, I'll be honest, I go back to sleep, because I'm exhausted. But that combination of that sleep and just starting with a little bit of meditation has been changing my life. Go ahead. Yeah.
And that's number 26, meditation, mindfulness. Because you're learning how to regulate your thoughts. Yeah. You're learning how to not attend and not get distracted by things. And that's giving you some control of your inner state. Yeah. And so if that is the foundation of this, I didn't put it in, but without question, meditation, mindfulness, be able to focus, and it's all part of self-regulation. So a powerful modality as well.
26B, I recommend folks try that meditation with eye gazing. If you've got a friend who's down to do it. I was just talking to my friend who teaches up in the Bay Area, and she was saying that one of the things she does in her chemistry class is she'll just have students, her, it's Kelly. So Kelly has her students just eye gaze with each other for a couple minutes at the start of class. And I think it's doing a lot of the things that you've talked about, maybe like 4 or 5, just by making eye contact with somebody and just breathing together.
Breathing, and it's centering, and we're mammals, and that's how we connect. Yeah.
So let's give folks a so what. Like, how would we? So what? What do students do with all this? I mean, there's maybe some obvious things, but what's top of mind for you? Like, how do they apply this? How do they get practical with this?
You practice. And again, there are 25. You might find 3 that work for you. Yeah. And that's why I like, from a therapeutic perspective, you have to have a big toolkit, a big grab bag. You grab in there, try this, and some things won't hit at all, but find what lands for you. And then practice. You have to reinforce this so these things are available to you. And so if deep breathing is one that, when I really do deep breath, it helps me. So for 20 times, over a span of a few days, stop for a minute, do some deep breathing, and you're deeply reinforcing that connection, the neural pathways, that you're canalizing that. So it's available to you when you're in a high stress condition. It's not going to, if you read it once, that's nothing. You have to practice and reinforce these things if you want to have them available to you when you need them. And so use these, practice, and of course, apply this to other areas. It's not just for tests. This is for any time you get worked up and you're getting more aroused, more anxious. How do I calm myself down? Especially, in the time of this school shootings and politics and things, we all get worked up. Yeah. And I experienced that a lot during the past election. And I found my level, I was being compulsive and I was losing some of my center. And learning how to get back through all these sleep, exercise, all these things, self-talk, and you're calming yourself down because we live in an anxious time. Yeah. And some would say it's the age of anxiety. And Americans are more anxious than any other nation through our measurements, the research. Really? So it's out there, and we take more Xanax, more prescription medications. I think 1 in 3 people roughly will have a major anxiety event in their lifetime. I think roughly 1 in 5 people, there's almost 1/5 of people are taking some form of anxiety reducing medication. Wow. Like tens of millions of prescriptions for Xanax and all the PAMs out there, the arousal PAM and everything else, either to sleep or to calm themselves down or whatever it is for. So it's so good to be able to self-regulate without using pharmaceuticals. Yeah. And even if it means bringing down your dosage, if you can learn to use some of these things so you're less anxious, this is just great for mental health and for kids who are off to college and the stressors in the job market. You know, the more we can learn how to calm and center ourselves, it just makes for a better life.
Right. Yes. And yes.
Yeah.
Let's do show and tell. Shall we?
Yeah, for sure.
Great. So what have you brought for show and tell today, Jed?
I brought a book that I really enjoyed. There's a researcher, his name is Dan Siegel, and he is a medical doctor, but he is a brilliant guy for the layperson. He has a book called it's an older book now. It's the new science of personal transformation. It's called Mindsight. And I just like this because it walks through the neurochemistry, the self-regulation of how do you begin to self-regulate. And he walks through a few experiences working with a client and teaching this client about how, here's what's happening in the brain, here's what's happening here, and here's how you change your brain. Here's how you, and it's about metacognition. How do you observe your brain? How do you watch your brain? How are you going to change your brain? Yeah. So I think Dan Siegel, he's a brilliant fella.
Yeah.
And if you want a quick, hear one of his podcasts, watch a video online, I think he's someone I really respect, and that's my little show and tell for that one.
Same. I love it. Let me see the one that I just mentioned. I want to see if it's on my bookshelf really quick. I don't know that it is. It is somewhere. It's on one of my bookshelves. My wife and I got rid of 1,000 books because we did the, what do you call the Marie Kondo process?
Yes, the essentialism. They're bringing it back to basics. It's funny, Ethan. My girlfriend's moving in. I just brought in 200 more books. I'm adding an extra bookshelf over there. So we're going to have a lot of books.
That's the other way to go with it. But anyway, so I don't have the book to show, but the one that I would point folks to, I keep thinking it's going to be right there, and it's not right there. All right, I'll give up. It's Loving What Is, and this book by Byron Katie. But the audiobook I'd recommend. So here I'm showing you the audiobook of Loving What Is beautiful, and there's so it's just, it was huge for me. So that would be my show and tell. I haven't thought about it in a little while. I kind of want to go back and listen to it now. What else, Jed? Do we have anything else we want to say to the people?
Relax. Don't do it. When you're good, and
you guys need to relax.
You just gotta take it now. You just I don't know. The nice thing is you can get better at this stuff, and when it comes to emotional regulation, we actually hit full peak in our early 30s. The ability. So students who are like a 7-year-old. The mom does the, regulation of the anxiety, and the mom calms the kid down. And even at 13, 14, we're still not great. And those pathways between the frontal cortex, the amygdala, the midbrain, limbic, those still aren't fully, deeply canalized and established. Over time, you get better. And so there is hope. And through practice, we get better. And so you can, it's like doing your foul shots. You can for sure become much better at this game. And there are folks I know who have been very, very, highly anxious people, and then who've learned to self-regulate without meds. And they become like different people in terms of how they respond to stressors. And it's one of the biggest shifts is this thing a challenge or a threat? And if you stop seeing it as, this is a threat, fear, versus, it's a challenge, I have resources. Again, that reframe is powerful in life because fear, anxiety is a subjective response. It's saying, I perceive this thing as a threat. And that's totally malleable and flexible. And the same stimuli, which before your glasses you were wearing says, fear, be afraid. This is, you can just change your glasses. And no, it's just a challenge. I can do this. Right. So I love that potential, the power that we have to shift how we perceive things and how we view the world.
It's magical. It's not magical, and it's magical the way that we can reframe. And reframing is like, I'm thinking about college essays right now. Imagine that. But is like that whole process of like looking at our past and going, wait, that's actually not the most useful way of looking at that in terms of the way that I want to be operating in the world. Like, is there another way of looking at that? Certainly having somebody else mirror that for us can be useful, but you have the power. I have the power to do that, on our own. So
right on.
But you're the best. Thank you.
Hey, you too, man. It's been great.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Boom, done.
Well, thank you so much.
Crushed it.